For anyone watching this episode, don't be confused. I look the way I look because we have Heritage Day tomorrow here in South Africa, and so we had to dress up today at school because I work at a school. And so naturally we have the South African flag tattoo on the cheek, and we have the South African Football Association shirt on, and naturally, our Blik Beker, which we drink from. So going full South African today.
You are set, and I love those earrings you have.
Oh, thank you. So it's Black Label. So it's a South African beer brand.
Oh, nice. I love it. It's so patriotic. And for those Americans, she's not talking American football. This is the rest of the world's football.
Yes, correct. So I feel I'm a little bit underdressed, overdressed for what we're about to be talking about. Maybe I feel a bit overdressed. I don't know.
But it's still on brand because you have to be able to think of what things your characters would wear. How patriotic are they? And are they going to be wearing things like that? It's just the way it is.
Very true, though. I must say, if I didn't work at a school, I probably would never have known any of the holidays. I will just forget.
Who needs a holiday? Today I'm going with my simple mango juice with the peach, or not the peach. I'm allergic to peaches. With pear. I'm allergic to peaches. That's a bad idea. But it's coming into Halloween season, and so I have an orange sugar cookie because it is sugar cookie season.
Oh my gosh, now I feel I have to go get my sugar cookie because we were selling sugar cookies at school today. Naturally, it has the South African flag on it. So yeah, I have my Blik Beker. It's very traditional Afrikaner cup that you can drink from, and I should have drank rooibos tea today. I am not very patriotic, but instead I decided to have vanilla tea. It smells delicious though, so I'll just go with that.
That is the coolest cup.
I love it. And it can fall as many times as it wants and it won't break. So that's fantastic.
Even better.
I know, right? Alrighty. Are we ready for this episode?
We are so ready.
Hey ho, let's go! Welcome to Tea and Tales. We are so happy to have you here with us. I'm Madeleine Ainau.
And I'm Sarah Sampson. We especially want to thank Book Cougars Podcast and Kate Wan Adele for joining us each week. This week we have a guest on. She is another romance writer that Nell has been able to talk with. Her name is Charlotte Stein, and we will be discussing with her the different levels of spiciness in your romance.
I'm so excited for this episode. I specifically picked this episode because I, as a romance author, have struggled so much with what spice levels are in romance. And so the day has finally arrived where I have figured it out, kind of. And so I would love to share it with everybody else, with Charlotte as my help.
So please welcome Charlotte Stein. So Charlotte, welcome to Tea and Tales.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me.
We are excited to have you here because a lot of times we talk about that in the genre, there are different styles and different ways of writing. And your style and Nell's style are different, but still they're in the romance genres. First, let's let people know more about you. Tell us a little bit about your writing journey, how you came to be a writer, and if you have any books out.
I started out by submitting a short story to Black Lace Books, which is a now defunct line. It was straight erotica, it wasn't just erotic romance. And I submitted a short to them, and they took that short story and things just went from there. Yeah, and then I've slowly progressed to erotic romance and all different subgenres of romance, and up to today when I've just got a paranormal romance coming out soon, dealing with a desperate demon.
I found it very fascinating though, because you write contemporary romance, you write paranormal romance, you write rom-com, and you write erotica. So you kind of have a very broad spectrum of the type of subgenres that you write in romance. And so do you find though that writing these different subgenres, your spice levels need to be adjusted, or don't you really think it matters?
In particular, I kind of thought when I sort of progressed to doing rom-coms for a major traditional publisher and all that kind of thing, I did think that I would have to really adjust my spice levels. That wasn't the case really at all. In fact, it was kind of the opposite, that I sort of dialed it back naturally myself because I do enjoy writing a slow burn. I like sort of building up to it a little bit, and I found that quite freeing. But the publisher was like, no, keep up the spice level, more spice. We want lots of spice. There's never been any kind of limitation on me at all there, which I was quite surprised at.
I feel like that's a key element in finding the right publisher for your books, because they're going to want what you want to do if you find that right person. If you're in the wrong place, then you have to adjust to that.
I was really lucky because they knew of me. They knew of my work before. They were fans of my work before. And so they were very aware of the spice level that I was operating at and wanted that specifically.
That is so cool. As we are talking throughout this episode, I have found a lot of lovely articles. And so the ones that we'll be talking about are Rachel Day Rowlands, Right for Harlan Quinn, Ashley Montgomery.com, and bookspar.com. So we will all have that up in the links for you to go look at and delve through. Okay, so I'm going to do a little recap to say what is the difference between romance, dark romance, and erotica. And so romance generally centers around the love story with a guaranteed happily ever after. Then we have dark romance, which is a subgenre of the romance, and that is more like your morally grey, complex characters with like difficult themes and like trauma or violence and ambiguous or tragic endings. So, but it still might have a happily ever after. And then you have erotica. So it's a genre where it's explicit sexual content and experiences are the central focus of the plot, with the story serving primarily to facilitate these sexual encounters. I have realized I am not an erotica reader. I was just like, where's the plot line? I'm like, where are the character arcs? But it's probably because the writing that I do, because it doesn't have as much spice, I really need to delve into the plot lines and into the character arcs and things like that. So have you found that when you started doing contemporary romance or paranormal romance, did you find it hard to, I almost want to say, tone down the sex scenes and do more like character building and things like that?
No, I didn't find it hard in the least, because the thing is, starting out at erotica, I started out quite by chance. It wasn't really me setting out to be an erotica writer. Like, part of me wanting to be an erotica writer and to write for Black Lace was actually being pulled towards romance. Like, I love a romance that has the spice in it, but my first love is romance. Unconsciously or otherwise, whether I was writing sex scenes or not, it was always very kind of plotline focused, character focused, and romance focused. For someone writing erotica, I always had a HEA. I always had, the happy ending and everything like that. I did everything that romance was already doing. It was already there for me. So when erotic romance kind of took off and all that kind of stuff, I loved it. That is exactly what I wanted to do, and I was so excited. So no, it's never been an issue for me whatsoever at all, no.
I had a burning question about writing romance. I try to write things into my novels that have romance elements in it, but I was reading that when you write your romantic scenes, that you need to focus more on like the character's emotions and the character connections, not just actions. In all of your different levels of spice, how much balance you have of the emotion and emotional connection of the characters versus the physical connections.
I think for me personally, the thing is about the way that I approach sort of spicy scenes and things like that has always been, it's character first. It's how they move through the spicy scene, what that does for their character journey, their emotional journey. The spicy scenes actually work in tandem with that in terms of the romance.
So it's not just throwing a bunch of spicy stuff together because you think it'll make people happy.
I've never been able to do that. I know there are some writers out there who very much approach those scenes as filler almost, but for me, I cannot abide that whatsoever. They have to mean something for me. They have to be there to serve a purpose in the emotional journey.
I 100% agree with you, because I will describe myself as like a sensual romance writer, because I do have the like kissing scenes and the touching scenes and all those things, but I don't delve deep into those scenes. But the most recent novel that I did work on, I don't know why these characters just doing stuff on their own. I'm like, can I help you? They were like, no, we need to have a scene where they are intimate. And I was just like, but do we really? I was just like, for those specific characters, I could see why it was needed. And so I think if your characters are driven towards that, it means that that emotional connection that they made kind of morphed into the intimacy connection that they've done.
I think that's really cool. I think it's really like that's the best way to go about it, is to let your characters guide you in the spice level, how much spice you want to put in a book. I think that's really important. Even though my spice levels are much, much higher, it is all about who they are and what they want to do, essentially.
And being able to express your level of spice is going to speak to your readership too. You need to know who that demographic is that wants that level of spice. And if that's not who you're trying to reach, you need to like reel it back.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was looking at Nell's resources that she pulled up and trying to figure things out for myself. She said it. She's like, it's frustrating to figure out what the levels are because everybody doesn't quite agree. So I'm going to be very interested in hearing about your different feelings of the levels. I've seen anything from 5 to 10 different levels on different people's like lines. And I'm like, okay, so how does this really work? And how do you like express to the reader what their level is?
I think, you know, with people having different levels of spice and things like that, I think it's different for everybody. Everyone comes at it differently, and what could be a 2 on the spice level to somebody would be a 5 to somebody else, you know? So I always think that's pretty interesting.
Well, what I love though is a lot of bookstagrammers, when they decide that they're going to start this account of them reviewing novels, they actually have their own personal spice level post that they put onto their platform, which I absolutely love because, as you say, like what for me is super spicy might for someone be like mild. And also if you go to romance.io, that is a lovely website where they will give you spice labels for romance novels, and they also have their own little indicator to say what they consider to be which level of spice and then how the people rate it. So in romance, it is also known as heat levels or steam levels, and it's about the amount of intimacy content and details in a book to help readers understand what they'll be getting into when they pick up the book. And I mean, actually, it also kind of helps the author to decide, okay, how they're going to market their book and who's going to want to read their novel.
When we're talking levels and how much is in the novel, we're not talking about like, is there 1 or 2 scenes? We're talking about how deep does the scene get in there. Like there could be 10 scenes or 2 scenes and they can both be the same level of spice books, right?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I think for some people, a really spicy book is one that just has multiple scenes. But like you say, the multiple scenes could be not very much compared to what other people are doing. Where for me personally, I think heat level and spice level is all about the levels of explicitness that you get to within each scene, you know? You could be an author that's written only a couple of scenes in, but they're very explicit and very extensive. And to me, that will up the heat level naturally.
Now, I just love to have my readers hanging in there. I always say my romance is like cliffhangers. I just get them there and they're like, nah, you're fine. Close door, enjoy. So many articles say so many different things about spice levels. And so some people say there are 6 levels of spice. Some say there are 5 levels of spice. You even have the writing gals who says there are 3 levels of clean/wholesome writing that you can distinguish. It has been decided that we are going to take the 5 level spice because I think that is kind of the most common. Is that also what you've found as you market your novel?
I usually say that my books are sort of like a 5 on any spice level. I think that my books are quite spicy, but some people seem to think that my books are quite tame compared to some, I suppose. And I think it's because a lot of people view spice levels in terms of not just the amount and what's in them and all this kind of thing, but very much in terms of like how much kink you have in a story. And I wouldn't say that my books have a lot of kink in them, just a lot of explicitness.
That's very interesting to me because we did a whole episode on the romance genres earlier in the season. So if you want to dig into that, you can go to that episode. One of the things that was very clear between the different subgenres of romance is that's where all of that comes in. If you have more kink, then it's going to be more of this. If you have less kink, it's going to be more of that. So it's interesting that a lot of readers are mixing up genre with spice level and not recognizing that you can have high spice and low kink. That is why you go for certain subgenres, like a dark romance instead of a sweet romance.
Yeah, it's always been the case throughout my career. I write what we call more sweet romance. I do tend to sort of gravitate towards that. But it's always been the case that people make the mistake of thinking that it won't have high heat levels because I'm writing this kind of sweetness. That's never been the case. It's always been my mission to try and sort of like show that those two things can go hand in hand, that you can write something very sweet and fun and cute, but it is also very, very steamy.
Well, I think the best kind of way also for someone to kind of figure out what their spice level is and kind of how they will say like, okay, I like this author, is by reading their novels, because then you kind of know, okay, this much of heat I can handle. And the chances that the rest of your novels that you write will kind of have the same heat level or spice level is pretty good, I will always say. If you are a beginner reader and you want to, implement some spice into your life, do not go read an erotica. You will die. Start mild. I'm like, please, like, build yourself up. Like, just don't fall right into it, because it's not going to end well for you. I'm telling you now.
So let's talk about level one. Level one, the wholesome, clean romance, and you have in parentheses no steam. There's no steam. So what sort of scenes would that include if it's a level one spice level?
I think a level one would probably be nothing more than a bit of smooching. For me personally, it would be a bit of smooching. It would be a bit of maybe some items of clothing come off. Very standard. Yeah, I would say that's a 1 for me.
Interesting. Like for me, level 1 is maybe kissing, maybe hand holding, but that's it. Like nothing more, nothing less. It's the majority is like character building, it's story building, like that is it. Because I think a lot of Christian novels are rated as wholesome/clean romance. And so you would probably not see them taking a piece of clothing off if there is level 1 spice.
But for me, I always think though that if you're putting it on a spice level, you're implying that the bottom has some spice in it, has something in it, Whereas if you're saying it's closed door completely, that's outside the spice level. There's no spice scale whatsoever. You're outside that at that point.
0 peppers.
Yeah. Yes, that's it. I would put it at that's a 0, and then the 1 is when you start to slightly progress. Maybe a cardigan comes off. That's that kind of thing. That's how I would think of it for sure.
Okay, interesting.
YA might be able to get into a level 1 or 2 or something, but they're gonna stick at that very minimal, like, oh, the boy is so cute and I'm gonna hold his hand, like what makes teenagers excited is he held my hand, sort of a level is kind of how I think of it. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I've always felt like sort of YA romance is outside the spice level. It's not there to titillate, it's just there to represent a teenage view and sort of perspective, whereas the spice level for romance is operating on a whole different level.
I love this, especially because Nell's like way over here and you're way over here. So this is kind of the bracket that we're looking at. If you see this, it's going to be somewhere in there, probably. Okay, let's go to level 2. So level 2 is labeled as sweet romance with low steam. So Nell, what does that mean to you?
Okay, so to me, sweet romance would be, it's still the emphasis on kind of the romance storyline, and you have your feelings and your emotions in between. And so you have a little bit more of physical connection with that person. And this is where I might add maybe like a scarf would come off, or maybe like you would wear like one of the spaghetti shirts and it would like fall down your shoulder or something like that. It loosens up a little bit more and it has a bit more physicality. And so I would then say it would be stuff like young adult or like, your K-dramas or things like that. But it's going to be like fade to black and closed doors still.
Okay, and Charlotte, what would you call a level 2?
To me, when you get into level 2 spice level, it's no longer closed door. The door is open, but that you're not being particularly graphic. It's not getting very explicit. There's discussions of what's happening, nothing beyond that. That would be a level 2 to me. That is what I would expect.
Maybe a glaze over it, so like that you don't like. Yeah.
Yes, very soft focus, very kind of like PG-13 sex scene that's in the film Top Gun. Very sort of like curtains billowing sort of thing.
Okay. See, I like this because it just goes to show you why each person needs to have their own spice level poster.
Absolutely.
That's actually a big jump from you're seeing some sensuality versus you know what they're doing behind the door is just not given a lot of airtime. So I feel like I need to give a slight warning. If anybody is a little uncomfortable with this topic, you might just skip the next few minutes because we're going to go into some deeper things. If not, stick with us. I'm sure plenty of our people are okay with this, but I do know that we have some younger listeners. So if it's a little uncomfortable already, just skip the next few minutes and to the wrap up. Okay, so we're going to go to level 3, the sensual romance or moderate steam. So Nell, where would you put that?
So to me, sensual scenes is, I think, where my sweet spot is, because I feel you are still with the emotions and the character plot, but this is where I would say the open door is, and where you can go in and put your goggles on and start seeing everything. And so I would say sensual romance, which is level 3, is where you up the heat. So it would be the kissing is more descriptive, the physical scenes are more descriptive, and you will have more playful flirting. And so you would still, I would say, in those scenes that you do write, the emotion of the characters still come through. And it's not just about the pleasure of it, but the lust and the pleasure of the characters are amped up more. And so it's like I almost want to say like the mild physical intimacy scenes where that is coming together.
I would definitely describe a level 3 in almost the same way as you would, in terms of like it becomes much more descriptive. Everything is more descriptive. You're getting more details of everything, even down to sort of like the way that you describe kissing is different as well. That becomes more detailed, more descriptive, more heated, I guess. And like you say, more kind of flirting and more sort of like intense chemistry and physical connection, not just in terms of like what's going on, you know, what's going on in the bedroom, but like what's going on between the characters might be a bit more heightened and a bit more sort of heated and chemistry laden. That's the way that I would describe it, a level 3. Yeah.
Okay, I feel this is the first time we're in alignment here a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel like level 3 is like my level. Like 2s and 3s is good enough for me. I don't read a ton of romance. So, and the one I'm reading right now is definitely a very much level 1. Like maybe even level 0 for Charlotte. It's very low level. I have 80 more pages, so who knows what happens.
It could suddenly surprise you. You never know.
So let's go on to the level 4. And what do people in level 4 expect?
So level 4 is your sexy romance level, and it would be high steam. Okay, I will say this though. And I think we already kind of said it. What is steamy for one person might not be steamy for another person. So my level 4 might be a level 12 for you. We don't have level 12s, but that's how you might feel when you're reading it. I would say it's definitely more than your sensual romance. It's going to be more explicit. There's going to be, I feel, more intense physical scenes. There's going to be sex scenes in it. And so very descriptive sex scenes. It's just going to be more, I almost want to say blunter. Like people won't be afraid to use words when they are in level 4. They won't feel like they have to sugarcoat all of the body part names and things like that. They will just say it as it is. They will go wham bam, thank you ma'am type of vibes.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Level 4 is where you're not afraid of the language at that point. You're not trying to sort of like have those billowing curtains and euphemisms or anything like that. To me, a level 4 must be a certain level of explicitness at that point, for sure.
Maybe give it a lot more screen time. Like, would you stick with the characters through things more?
Yeah, I think if somebody said that a book of mine was a level 4 and it didn't have that level of extensiveness, you know, of it going, like you say, going through all the things that are going on, I think somebody would be disappointed reading that. They're looking for quite, you know, not necessarily loads more sort of spicy scenes, but certainly those spicy scenes should go on for a number of pages. I wouldn't be surprised in a level 4 to see sort of like chapter long spicy scenes.
I almost want to say like for a level 4, your spicy scenes I almost want to say it would be like 60-40 compared to your character arc and your plot line and all those things, because I feel that there will be more intimate scenes and there will be more descriptions. And those all eat words, okay? And so your your novel can only be that many words.
You can still put character into it, I feel like. You can still make it feel like this is plot worthy, it's moving the plot forward, but I'm going to spend a lot of time on describing it to you.
I think when you're getting into the area of where you're having possibly chapter long scenes, unless you're doing sort of like out and out erotica or something like that, I think you've got to have that point of like, it's got to move the characters forward, it's got to have the emotional journey. That has to actually be in the scenes. It can't just be at that point that they're just a throwaway chapter full of spice that you've just thrown in there. You know, you've got to start thinking this is integral to the plot.
One thing we haven't really talked about in any of these levels, and I know we still have one more level to go, but I have my spidey senses tingling that it might be in this level, where things like non-monogamous situations or BDSM situations, is this the level you start seeing more of that as well?
Yeah, I would say so. For me personally, yeah, you might see sort of BDSM or something like that, but it's not necessarily that extreme or anything. It can still be quite sweet, gentle, not hugely graphic, I would say. That's what I would put a level 4 at, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely up there, because I did not see myself doing BDSM in my story. I'm like, no, I'm good, thanks. Let's put the whips away. Thank you very much. I would say if you would put BDSM in level 4, it would be very mild, as Charlotte mentioned. I don't think it will be like to the extreme type of vibes.
For most readers, I think it would be the case that the BDSM sort of stuff would automatically guarantee it's a level 4, I think.
I will add though, because you were talking about non-monogamous. So I will say, I think level 4 is also the place where you can start doing more than one partner in a scene, the reverse harem that you have and things like that. So I think that is, I almost want to say, where you kind of introduce it, but then you go into level 5 and there's like no off limits at all. It's not even an open door. Like there are no doors. There's no windows. There's nothing. It's just a field.
There's no walls, no windows. Yeah, I like that.
If your imagination can bring it up, it's theirs, pretty much.
Yeah, I think when you get to sort of the level 5, any reader should go into that expecting that there could be anything in there, essentially. That's really the point where if you are not delivering on the spice, then you've let it down, you know, that you really have to deliver at a level 5 spice level. If you're not ready for that, if you're not ready for spice in your books, you don't want to be doing a level 5. You don't want to be reading a level 5, no.
You do not. Like, please don't go for your first novel and do a level 5. It's not going to end well for anyone.
No. I feel like people who read level 5 have been reading romance for a long time, have a lot of life experience, have built themselves into this and decided that they like it and enjoy it. It's not something you just pick up overnight.
No.
So can I just say, okay, so I started reading the ACOTAR series, and people were going on Instagram and TikTok and everything about like chapter 54 in the Court of Mist and Fury scene. And me being me, I forget what chapters people are talking about. I just read my book. So I kid you not, I'm reading the entire novel and I'm like, where's the scene that people were talking about? And I was like, maybe I have a problem, because clearly I have no limits.
No, I think that's true. I think for me personally, they're a big nothing on the spice level. I think that is very much a case of like, I think often when you've got like a really massive audience, a general audience for something, the talk of the spice levels becomes very skewed, because you've got a huge audience who are not used to spice at all, less than 0, minus a million. So even a hint of it to them is like super like, oh my god. So you can't really rely on that at that point, I think.
And I think that the romantasy is still trying to figure its way into that, because fantasy has had such a low spice level forever. Like, think Lord of the Rings. What's the spice level there? It's like a 0.
Listen, no. Like in Pride and Prejudice, when he like puts her on the carriage and you have that hand scene. That's just a 5. I'm like, whoa.
This is what we were talking about though earlier. Was it at level 3 when we were talking about how the actions become steamier, even if they're not that steamy? You know, they're not explicit, but they become sort of like a little bit more heated. But the hand in Pride and Prejudice is a perfect example of that. Yeah.
I think overall, we have discussed the 5 levels of romance. You have to know your own kind of spice level to figure out like what someone else's novel might do to you. And then please, 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 here's the thing. If you read a novel and either you didn't know that there was going to be spice in it, or you knew that there was going to be spice in it, but you didn't expect the type of spice that you found, please don't go attack the author, because that just wasn't for you. Okay? Just put the book down. Like, calm down, please.
For as long as I've been in the business, I've had those kinds of like attitudes that's very much like this is way too much and all that kind of thing, like those kinds of reviews. But I've always kind of felt though at the same time that those reviews, those kinds of like attacks, I guess, they sell the book. I don't mind so much because they do actually sell the book, you know? If you get that kind of 1 star, which like there was way too much sex in this, you can guarantee that will attract readers who want that, you know? They'll see that and be like, sounds good to me, sign me up.
I have one last question about the spice levels and marketing. When you market your book, because the spice levels can mean so many different things to different people, do you often put warnings or like hashtags on it to be like it's open door or explicit or something like that, just so that people get the idea that this really is a 5? We're not talking about a fudged 3 here.
Yeah, I generally do warn people a little bit to some extent about my background and my backlist, and this is the kind of writer that I am. Do tend to go into sort of rom-coms in particular and thinking it's going to be a 1, you know? It's automatically going to be a 1. So I find that I often have to say that's not the kind of writer that I am, and that I'm very big advocate for, you know, sweet can be also steamy. I do tend to let people know, especially if people come to me and they're asking for a recommendation from my backlist. What should I read first? I try and say, look, you're going to encounter some things, so just be ready.
Do you give them authors to read before they read you? Be like, if you can handle this, then maybe ramp up to me.
Yeah, I've definitely sort of like said, I'm at this level. You know, if you've read this, this is the kind of thing that we're talking about.
Thank you, Charlotte, for joining us today. This was very informational for me, and I hope that our listeners can take this information and put it into their writing, as well as take it into their reading so they know what they're getting themselves into.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
I see you have some websites and things. How can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Charlotte.Stein. I'm on Blue Sky, and I've got a website, charlottestein.net. Yeah, you can find everything that you need to know about my backlist on there. On my Instagram, I've got a post somewhere that shows all my backlist titles and what's coming up.
Side note, do you have your own spice rating on your website?
Don't actually. I tend to have all my blurbs describing the books are very steamy.
We will have all of those links in the bio with Nell's resources so people can find you.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
We like to keep things short here on Tea and Tales. Get your fingers back on the keyboard and your pens back on paper.
And if you like what we are doing here, the topics that we discuss and the guests that we have on, go follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at Tea and Tales Podcast, and on Twitter/X and TikTok at Podcast Tea Tales. And go to that purple icon on your device and go give us 5 stars to help us go up, up, up. It's our moment.
Happy writing.
Bye.